Looks like we're streaming.
Yes, we are.
All right,
Good-
let's
good to go.
get started with our interviews then. I think we'll just go down the list. It seems like Heidi Henderson is there first. And Heidi, you are in the meeting. You need to unmute yourself. And if you'd like us to see you, you just click on that video camera icon. There you are.
Hi.
And so thank you for throwing your hat in the ring and being willing to take on the responsibility of the Library Board of Trustees position. Just a couple questions for you tonight, and then hopefully we'll be able to come to a decision later in the evening. But what attracted you to submit your application, and what do you think you can bring to the board to help it out?
Well, I'm an avid reader. I visit the library. Well, it used to be twice a week, although during COVID it's been less, but I've been really impressed with the availability of resources, even though, you know, they're brought to me in a paper bag. They're an admirable bunch of people over there. I was an English major in college, undergrad, and I'm a professor now, so I have sort of a strong connection to reading, to literature. But what I'm more interested in terms of, well, just volunteering for a place that I believe in would be the main reason that I sort of threw my hat in the ring, as you said. I'm also interested in how we can use the libraries to promote current events, get voters into the room, get people talking about current issues. The library feels to me to be a place that dialogue can happen, that conversation can happen. I brought my children to the library twice a week when they were little, and they're now either in college or out of college. So that was an incredible resource. And I'm pretty a careful follower of children's literature and children's books too. So sort of having an eye out to what's new, what books are coming out that could support greater diversity than what I found in the library. Now that was 20 years ago, so maybe that has changed a little bit now, but there's some really great listings online aligned with the Black Lives Matter movement, aligned with the environmental issues going on today that I think could add to the collection, particularly for children.
Thank you. Any other questions for Heidi? So another question that occurs to me, Heidi, is do you have experience working in a sort of board atmosphere like this?
Not so much like this, not town, but I have experience working on boards of professional. There's a couple. I am actually a professor of dance, although I teach primarily writing. And there's a national dance education organization that I've been involved in, presented papers at the conferences, but also sat on boards and panels. So that would be the closest I have. I mean, my academic experience as a professor, I'm on committees all the time, which could range from making decisions about budgets or making decisions about, you know, hiring people, admissions director decisions, things like that.
I think that's all very relevant. Any other questions? I guess a final question for me is we do have a number of other openings on our boards and commissions. Is this your passion and the only one you're interested in? Would you be interested in other open?
Maybe if I feel like I could contribute. I don't know what those are, so I wouldn't want to be put on a board that I felt I had no experience to move forward or to help.
Understood. This makes me wonder, I assume that you found out about this open position by them posting it at the library, is that
correct?
I feel like maybe we could post our openings for other boards and commissions at the library. I don't know if
That's a great idea. Yeah.
to see that our library director is watching us. Anyway, something to think about. Thank you very much for your application, Heidi. We will let you know in short
All right.
order.
Thank you so much. Have a good night, everyone. I hope you also finish before 9. It's a big
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you. Good night, Heidi. I do see Laurel Clark has raised her hand. We want to let her speak. And let's also bring in Lori Underhill while we're doing. Laurel, you
So,
are.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so we could certainly do that. I think the biggest response we had was from that outside sign kiosk. I had just put trustees wanted, and I must have gotten probably about 8 calls from that. So we could certainly put any of the vacancies up that you guys, I know you have zoning and planning, so we could do that.
Great. Thank you, Laurel, for the offer. And Rob or Susan, you can follow up with Laurel about doing that. We have a lot of big openings, zoning, planning, affordable housing, collaborative, economic development committee, lots of good stuff. Okay, so Lori Underhill, thank you. Sorry for postponing you here, but you may have just watched that previous interview. So the basic question is, what inspired you to apply for this position, and what do you think you would bring to the board if we appoint you?
Hi, so I'm kind of similar to Heidi, I have to say. I'm an assistant professor at Brown. I do biomedical research at Women Infants Hospital. Raised in Rhode Island, grew up in Warwick Public Library. Our mom made sure we had library cards starting as soon as we could sign our names, 5 years old. I raised my kids that way here in South Kingstown. So I have a real respect for libraries. My profession, I wouldn't be able to exist without research libraries. Not that that's the same as a public or free library, but just an overall respect. And that's why I thought I could maybe contribute a little something to being on this board. I just want to bring maybe like a little change, a little enthusiasm, maybe some new ideas, while still kind of maintaining the integrity and the history of the board itself. I think libraries are just an incredible resource that need to be carefully cared for.
Questions for Lori? Guess I get to do all the talking tonight. You probably also heard my questions earlier. Would there be other positions throughout the boards and commissions of the town that you might be interested in serving on?
Honestly, yes, I am at that point in my life where my children have grown and flown, hopefully not to return, but you never know. So I do have a willingness and time to volunteer. This one just caught my eye as my first attempt, being on that billboard outside of the Peacedale Library. So absolutely.
And I presume that similarly, you've served on boards and committees as part of your professional career.
I have. I've not served on a nonprofit board, but definitely I have plenty of experience with committees, et cetera.
Okay, very good. Any final takers on asking Lori a question?
No, just thank you very much for putting your name in the hat.
Thank you.
Yes. We have obviously some great candidates for this position, but we will be able to make a decision, I trust. So we will be letting you know shortly.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
And then we also have Michael Henry.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. If you'd like us to see you, you can click on
Yeah.
the video icon.
Here we go. Hi, everyone.
Good to see you again, Michael.
Same here.
And so we know you from your time on the zoning board. So thank you for also being willing to serve here on the library board of trustees. What was it about this particular board that attracted you?
Yeah, it's really the same thing that attracted me when I applied originally. I think it was about 4 years ago now, and took a roughly 3-year detour through the zoning board of review. I'm really enthusiastic about this opportunity, and there are 3 things that I think I would bring to this position. The first is that I'm in the middle of a career as an attorney, and most of my focus has been on the intersection of government and business, with a specialization now in governance and compliance issues. The second reason is that I have a business experience. I've been working for the last 6 years or so for companies, and these are companies that are careful about the decisions they make, and they don't decide to undergo expenditures or significant efforts unless they've analyzed what the risk is and the benefit, and that's something that it's been kind of new to my career the last 6 years, and I've become much more literate in the language of risk and in business decision making. And the third is I'm an enthusiastic user of the library. In fact, my wife grew up in South Kingstown, and there are 3 generations of my family that are currently library users. My in-laws are active borrowers, and my mother-in-law loves to go to the artistic and concerts, the artistic events and concerts. My wife remembers walking to the Peacedale Library when she was a girl, and I am a heavy user of the library's borrowing of books, but also the electronic resources. And I have a pretty good understanding of how important those are. When I explain to people that, those e-readers or audiobooks are actually available for free from the library, more times than not, people are surprised. They don't know. And just seeing also the increasing availability of streaming services and movies, I think if more people understood that, they'd have a better sense of how great a resource the library continues to be. And it's, with that in mind, that, as we move through this challenging time and this challenging environment, it's important that we help the library not only to maintain its services, but also improve its services to a changing and vibrant user group. And I would really welcome the chance to be a part of that work, an important work in the community. And for many people also, their interactions with the library is their closest interaction with the government services, their closest personal interaction. And I'd be, I'm very enthusiastic about building people's positive experiences there.
All right, thank you, Michael. Questions for Michael? I will ask the same question of you, Michael, that I've asked of everybody else. And you are well aware of the other boards and commissions in town. I notice the expertise you cited in your business acumen. So I was wondering, at all interested in economic development committee type of work, or?
Abel, you asked me that question a number of years ago, and I think I said yes. I think this time I'm going to say no, though. I'm going to say no. This is the board that I'm interested in right now.
Very good. All right. Any other questions from anybody? All right. Well, we will be able to give you an answer shortly, Michael. Thank you for throwing your name out there again. And,
thank you, everyone.
Have a good evening.
How about you too?
And Rob, with that, let's get into the work session proper here. Go through the agenda. It's pretty light agenda, if I dare say it. But yeah, highlight anything you think you should know.
It's not too bad tonight, at least in terms of the number of items on the agenda. Let's just run through with regard to licenses. There is one license that is not on the consent agenda. Nothing particularly unusual about that license. In the communications, we have a number of resolutions related to coronavirus relief funding coming through the state. Charlestown has suggested that those funds be made available to municipalities. And Barrington has also suggested that those funds be made available to small businesses. That actually is a consent agenda item. We have an email dated September 7th, 2020 from Ryan McGuire concerning native land acknowledgements. I've actually noticed the link here is broken, so the public may not have access to that. I would ask that this item be put back on the agenda for the next meeting because I'm concerned that the public may not have been able to access that email. We have an email from Bill Huggins requesting no parking signs adjacent to the Chaffee Wildlife Refuge now that the National Wildlife, the Fish and Wildlife Service has sort of increased the hunter use of that property. I think no parking signs is, one of the thoughts on how we can maintain some semblance of order in and around the Chaffee Preserve. We have a letter from John Bernardo tendering his resignation from the Zoning Board of Review. And we have an email from John Riondo tendering his resignation from the Planning Board. We do have another email on the issue of traffic calming on Middlebridge Road. As the council is aware, there was another fatal accident on Middlebridge on the same day that we had a fatal accident on 138 last week. Was definitely a bad week and certainly a bad day for our first responders here in South Kingstown. We have continued to continue trying to figure out what might be done on Middlebridge, and we can certainly have some conversation around what we are doing with the town engineer and the Department of Public Services. It's not an easy problem to address. Similarly, or related to that, we do have a scheduled presentation tonight by the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. They are prepared to give a 15 to 20-minute presentation on their pedestrian and bicycle safety master plan, which the council received some time ago. The co-chairs of the committee are here and will be making a presentation. They've actually asked, though, that the town council move this item forward if it's convenient, because they are trying to get off of this meeting like everybody else as soon as possible. So I told them that I would make that request. If it's possible to move that forward in the agenda, they'd appreciate it. New business, really nothing particularly earth-shattering in terms of procurements. I will say that the South Station bunk room renovations came in a little above what we had anticipated, but we do have the funding available and we will be able to get that work completed. Nothing in the purchases that I think isn't self-explanatory. I'd be happy to answer any questions or bring folks in to answer any questions if the council has any about the items on the new business list.
Any questions for Rob on any of the agenda items? In terms of bringing the BPAC report forward, maybe before we get to communications, because I think some communications are related to road safety. So it might help inform that discussion when we get to it. Does that sound good?
I think the co-chairs would be happy to have any forward movement on that. So I think that's great. If the council would like, I know that the accidents were, big events last week. We'd be happy to talk about what happened on Middlebridge, what happened on 138. They really were very tragic events in both cases. First responders arrived on scenes that were really very tough for our folks to respond to. They were not easy. They were not easy traffic accidents to respond to. In the case of the Middlebridge accident, the primary contributing factor seems to have been speed. The driver was traveling at a very high rate of speed, clocked at one point, not on Middlebridge, but on Route 1, not long before that accident at speeds in excess of 90 miles an hour. Speed was definitely a factor on Middlebridge. Investigation on the 138 accident isn't done yet, but it does appear that the driver lost control, possibly due to a medical incident. Not good accidents. We are getting together with the police department, the Department of Public Services, the town engineer, and we will sort of do a walkthrough on proposals that have been made for addressing speed at Middlebridge. It's very difficult, as we've discussed in the past, to address all of the concerns on Middlebridge because of the limitations on the road topography. It's a narrow, winding road. Many of the houses on Middlebridge are close to the road. There's not a lot of yard between the road and the front door of many of those homes. So it's a tough road to make adjustments on. If you had the room and you could expand, widen the road, you might be able to address some of those concerns. But there's nothing like roundabouts or road straightening and widening that can be done down there. The mitigations that we have done this year, stop signs, painting, attempts to visually narrow the road by putting reflective stanchions along the road, do seem to have had some impact. It's not absolutely clear that they have improved conditions tremendously, but they have had some impact on the way that people interact with the road. As you know, we've previously painted speed limits on the road surface. So when you drive down Middlebridge, you see in the travel lane the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit posted. We have got the speed feedback signs scheduled. And in fact, who have we got here who may know? Chief Chow, do you happen to know what the status of the speed feedback signs is? I know they've been ordered, the bid was awarded. I don't know what the schedule for deployment is. Do you happen to know?
I do not know. I believe that was, if John's on, does John know, Jacques know the deal with that and when it's coming in? I'm not sure on that one.
Yeah, I didn't see John in the
He's here. He's muted at the moment.
Great. There he is.
Rob, if you can hear me, I don't know if you can see me, but yeah,
we can hear you.
Purchase order, I believe. And hold on.
There you go.
Ah, there we are. So we've cut the purchase orders, my understanding, and if they haven't been ordered, they're imminent to be ordered. And I think the manufacturer actually has still at this point a pretty short lead time. So we will try to expedite those to the greatest extent possible and get them erected on Middlebridge Road. One,
Hopefully those,
one northbound, one southbound. We're proposing the northbound one of Torrey Road and the southbound one before you get into, say, Red Drive.
All right. Thank you for that update. One last thing on the agenda tonight, there is under appointments, the ability to appoint members.
yes,
to the
sorry.
building.
Yes, so this came out of a school building committee meeting of last week. The school building committee voted unanimously to recommend to the town council that the town council reconsider the configuration of the school building committee. This is really just recognition of the fact that we have a lot of duplication of skills on that committee, and we also have a number of people in the public who have expressed concern that the committee does not have enough public participation. We have one member of the community who is not employed by or an elected official of either the town or the school district, only one. Looking at the configuration of the committee as it is right now, we have tripled up on building officials. The RIDE regulations require that there be a building official, a maintenance person on the committee. Our charter is silent on how many of any discipline need to be on the committee. But we have the school facilities person, we have the town facilities person, and we have the town building official, all sort of crowding around that skill set. It doesn't seem that that's really a necessary thing for us to triple up on. Likewise, we have the CFO for the town, the school business official, and the town manager, all of whom would qualify under the RIDE regulations as an official responsible for budgeting. It's, again, a duplication, in fact, sort of tripling up on the same skill set. As we're coming into the budget season, I'd love to sort of free some of our folks up to focus on budget, finance in particular. And it would, by sort of shifting some of our employees off of the committee, allow us to shift some folks from the community onto the committee. So the recommendation from the school building committee was just that the council consider reconfiguring the committee. And if the council wanted to, consider putting town residents as opposed to town employees on that committee, the first step would really be to advertise and see who comes forward and would be interested in serving on that committee.
Rob, this is Brian. I just wanted to add one more quick thing. The only thing you might have missed, I think, is the fact that advertising for qualified individuals to be on the building committee, more so towards the concept of qualified architects, engineers, people in construction, et cetera.
Okay. Sounds like we've got a lot of positions to advertise for. One thing, as I recall, we expanded the size of that committee. What is it, 11 that's called for in the statute, or?
It's actually 13. The statute calls for 8.
Okay.
Town charter calls for 7. But because the town charter also calls for the majority of the committee to be appointed by the town council, 11 was going to be the place where we landed. And ultimately, because of the appointments that had already been made by the school committee back when the council was considering its appointments, the number ended up being 13. So it's a large committee. In theory, if you got rid of the duplications of skill sets, you could have a committee of 8 and still have a council majority, so long as the current status of the high school principal, who is a non-voting member, were maintained as a non-voting member. So as a matter of sort of places to go, you could go anywhere from 8 to 13 or more, and still have compliance with the ride regulation and the town charter.
All right, thank you. With that, we've reached 7:30, so let's get ready to.
Gable, could we give, I think Deb had her hand up. Are you all set, Deb? Okay.
It's all right, we can move on.
Let me know when we're ready to start. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the South Kingstown Town Council. It is Tuesday, September 29th. The time is 7:30. Our first order of business is the pledge to the flag. If town clerk would please lead us in that, that'd be great.
My pleasure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Susan. And will the clerk please take the roll?
Council President Collins,
Here.
Council Vice President DeCruz,
Here.
Councilwoman Kelso,
Here.
Councilman McEntee,
Here.
Councilman Veely.
Here.
All members are present.
Perfect. Item 4 on the agenda is the approval of minutes of previous meetings.
Rory McEntee, I'll make a motion to approve for A and B.
Deb Kelso, second.
We have a motion from Rory, a second from Deb. Is there any discussion? Is there anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously, and that brings us to the consent agenda.
Rory McEntee, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
This is Bryant. I'll second.
Motion from Rory, second from Bryant. Is there any discussion on this one? Is there anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously as well, and that brings us to licenses. 6A is a resolution granting victualling and holiday sales licenses to Baja's Express, doing business as Baja's of Kingstown Road in Wakefield, subject to approval by the Rhode Island Department of Health and the Fire Chief. Application by David Boutros. Is David here? Looks like it. And David, you are here. You're unmuted. If you want us to see you, you can just click on that little video camera icon in the bottom left of your screen. Or if not, you can just proceed to tell us about why you're seeking this license, these licenses.
I'm not sure that he realizes that he's on.
How can we
Let me
ping him?
promote him to a panelist and see if that helps. Now he's muted.
David Boutros. Can you?
There he is.
Looks like you're good to go. I don't know. Can any of you hear him? David, try speaking again. You may want to try leaving the meeting and rejoining, or if you go down over the microphone icon, you can sort of click there on that little arrow to the right of it, and there are some options for testing your audio or switching your audio to various other settings.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, that worked.
Okay, sorry about that. This is not easy for technology. From a cook to technology is not easy.
It's all right. We figured it out.
Yeah, thank you.
So tell us, you've come before us before, I recall, in some respect, but tell us about Baja's Express.
Well, Baja, we started in about 14 years ago on Thea Street as a first location. and we got blessed with it so well that Chipotle came in and opened up. We end up doing better. We had to open another location on Thea Street. We have 2 locations on Thea Street with it 300 feet away from each other. Just how popular this is. An open kitchen. It's a open line, build your own. We did very well, and we expanded to North Providence and East Providence. We took over Cilantro, who went out of business, and we had 4 locations. We opened up our Cranston location about 8 months ago on Reservoir Avenue next to Dunkin' Donut. That did so well. The city of Cranston was very pleased with us. And we found out Moe's Mexican Grill that shut down in Wakefield. I'm part of the community. As like I told everybody else, we own International Pocket at the Emporium. We were there for 30 years. My brother owned the Coffee House Cafe on next to in Wakefield. So I live in Waits Road for the last 30 years. We own my own house over there. So I wanted to be part of Wakefield. It's just part of the community. There's been people ask for us to go there. The place was set up, beautiful place. It's done by the corporate. They spend a lot of money there. And we thought it was a good decision on our behalf.
Great. So any questions for David?
Just when is your opening? When will you have a grand opening?
We are gonna do testing for friends and family from 6 to 9. Anybody more than welcome to come in and just to test the product on Monday morning. And then we're gonna do a heavy campaign on free burrito from 3 to 6 on Monday for all the college students, all the community. Everybody wants to come in 3 to 6. We're gonna do a free burrito just as a starting campaign. You'll be very impressed. We know what we're doing. This is our 6th location. It's somewhere as a Subway, open kitchen, open line, build your own burrito, quesadilla, taco, nachos. Price is reasonable. Product is fresh, constantly prepping. It's been doing very well for us, and so far we've been having successful with it. We're gonna be opening the 7th location in Riverside. We bought the Dunkin' Donut in Riverside, the old Dunkin' Donut, and we bought the gas station on Bald Hill Road next to Hobby Lobby. That has been there for almost 100 years, an old gas station over there. So far we've been having very good success with the product, and people ask us to expand. We try to do it carefully to make sure the product and the service and get the right training with the people.
And how many employees will you have?
We are planning on having averaging 12 to 14 employees. We usually staff 4 employees at a time or 5 employees, 2 shifts. Our hours, most likely we're looking from Sunday to Monday from 10 to 10 and Thursday, Friday, Saturday to 11, just because, stay a little longer, an extra hour on a weekend.
And are you hiring so we could put that out to the public? Because we
yeah,
have
absolutely. We already start out
here in South Kingstown.
Oh no, absolutely. We have hired one of the old managers, district manager for Cilantro with us. She's our district manager, and we're doing a big campaigning on hiring. She's interviewing people, and I was so shocked because I've been doing construction on Five Guys for the last month and a half, and I seen all the young people, and I asked Five Guys, you guys have any problem of staffing? They said no, there's a lot of people in the community, not many things. So I think between URI, 20,000 kids, and between the schools, we should be very blessed. I was nervous because in Providence we've been having a problem hiring just because there's so many restaurants over there, and it's more restaurant than people, believe it or not. In Providence, it's crazy. It's very hard to find help. But Wakefield, we're excited. I think we're gonna be okay. We're gonna be. I had a meeting with my staff today just because we're gonna make sure the food is okay. Each store is gonna donate 2 of their managers to go on and for the first 2 weeks to go on every day to train and to make sure the food and the consistency of the product stays. Because that's my first thing, to make sure is the same product, same service that we provide.
Any other questions? Do I hear a motion?
Abel Joe Veely, I'll make a motion to approve item 6A.
This is Bryant. I'll second that motion.
Motion by Joe, second by Brian. Any discussion? All right, anyone opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Good luck. Look forward to trying it out.
Thank you. Please stop by on Monday. You guys be very impressed. The place is very funky. It looks cool. You're gonna love it.
David, did you say 6 a.m. or 6 p.m.? I just want to.
Oh, the free food? No, at nighttime, 6 to 9. We're gonna be 3 afternoon to 6 afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 to 6. No. We're gonna be opening on Sunday testing, Monday morning a little more testing, and 3 to 6 is gonna be free food. But when you walk in, you're gonna be so impressed. The place looks so authentic.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you, guys. God bless. Thank you.
All right. At this time, I'm going to bring forward item 10, our boards, commissions, and committees report. This is a presentation of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Master Plan by the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. This is continued from September 14th meeting, and we've been looking forward to this for a while. Now that we have Jen Judge, maybe Kenny Burke, 2 co-chairs. All right, can see you now, Kenny. Jen, if you would like to be seen, there's that little video camera icon down there, bottom left. Or if you don't want to be seen, that's okay too. Kenny, do you want to start us off?
Well, thank you. Actually, Jen and I have discussed this, and if you don't mind, I'd like Ms. Jen.
Suddenly you are, can't hear you anymore, Kenny.
If it's okay, I'd like Jen Judge to do the initial presentation.
All right, Jen, are you there?
So we're texting while we wait for her computer to connect.
We're too quick for you. Kenny, if you will, just maybe give us a little background on the process that led to this, or maybe Jen was going to do that, but.
Sure. But thank you all for having us here this evening. I'll try to be quick, leave some time for some comments. As you know, the council obviously has decided to place more of a focus on bike and pedestrian activity throughout town and South County as a means of recreation, transportation, and our overall health. So from the town's earlier efforts to endorse bike and peded friendly designs back in 2010, Council President, this actually started with you, with the Complete Streets resolution as a resident of Matunic. Subsequently, there was other work done by Healthy Places by Design, program funded through the Department of Health. And that led to several grassroots initiatives, including a handlebar survey with the town, the installation of orange safety flags throughout pedestrian intersections. And I thank you, Rep. Tanzi. Bike racks installed throughout town, engagement with Department of Transportation with design efforts. Jen Judge, as our registered landscape architect, was helpful with Old Tower Hill Road. I'm gonna hold off right now and see if Jen, are you online now? Can you?
I am. Sorry for the delay. It was spooling for quite some time before it let me in. Good evening, everybody, and thanks for this opportunity this evening. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
And Kenny, thanks for the intro. So following that, a lot of what our thoughts are that have been guiding us in decision making and moving forward is things that advocate for complete streets. Complete streets, we get asked that all the time, and it's a transportation policy and a design approach that requires streets to be planned, designed, operated, and maintained to enable safe, convenient, and comfortable travel, as well as access for users of all ages and abilities, regardless of their mode of transportation. Complete streets are streets basically for everybody. They also help create livable communities for various types of users, including children, elderly, people with disabilities. And Complete Streets also improves equity, safety, and public health, while reducing transportation costs and traffic woes. The town council initiated the charge and established our committee in late 2017. And as a result of these efforts and a sustained interest from the public to do more to enhance our bike ped infrastructure, I think the combination and your support has enabled us to keep advocating for that. We had a large task ahead of us, and we worked in public sessions with the town to assess and discuss various parts of the town that were frequently accessed by pedestrians and bikers. We also assessed the strengths and weaknesses of our infrastructure through a formal SWOT analysis. We focused on our mission developed by the town council and subsequently developed our vision. Our mission, the BPAC, is an ad hoc special purpose body of the town whose mission is to promote walking and biking across the community, including but not limited to incorporating the consideration of the needs of cyclists and pedestrians in the town circulation system and infrastructure through education and outreach efforts involving town officials, residents, and commercial entities. The committee evaluates and makes recommendations to the town council regarding general bikeability and walkability initiatives. We've also come together in forming a vision. The vision of the Bike Pedestrian Master Plan is to maintain and expand opportunities for residents and visitors of SK of all ages and abilities to bike and walk comfortably and safely for transportation, fitness, and general enjoyment. Kenny, if you'd like to follow up in terms of how we took it from there.
Sure. This has taken a couple of years, but we initially began reviewing all of the local planning documents related to transportation, bicycle, and pedestrian movements, including all of the village studies throughout town, the community comprehensive plan, and other statewide and regional planning documents. We actually invited the Department of Transportation, the Department of Administration Planning Office to come discuss their statewide mobility program. And we also work with folks from Narragansett and Charlestown as far as a South County Greenway linking residents and visitors from Narragansett through SK, Charlestown, all the way to Westerly. So it took some time, but we also started discussing the Green Streets and Complete Streets ordinances. It's a way that we could hopefully help town staff enact these goals and objectives listed in our master plan document. After getting our bearings straight with the relevant planning efforts, we took a closer look at funding, starting with the town's annual budget process, the capital plan, the operating budget. We need to make sure the planning staff, the Department of Public Services are well funded in order to maintain the assets that we have in place and new assets that we plan in the future. We looked at the bigger one, the State Transportation Improvement Plan through the Department of Transportation. This program has funded most recently Old Tower Hill Road, which has gotten a lot of FaceTime recently on social media. The William C. O'Neill Bike Path. We've also looked at the Green Economy Bond that's funded URI's bike path, the town's recent bike path connector to the South County Commons, and other funding sources like the Commerce Corporation's Main Street Grant Program. Our work then turned over to developing a comprehensive bike and pedestrian planning document. We worked long and hard, and we worked through several planning staff, and Rob, town manager, we're very grateful that you stuck in there with us through all those sessions. And basically what we have is our inaugural version of a master plan, and it is ready for prime time. So it's set up like a conventional planning document, an introduction, background, existing conditions, and then more importantly, a series of recommendations, discussion of funding opportunities, finishing with a detailed list of individual projects throughout the town. We'd like to discuss 3 of the main priorities for the BPAC's work in the near future. One of them, the first one, is integrating the Complete Streets and Green Streets design philosophies with other town programs. We do have a resolution supporting complete streets, but we need to actually get a little more teeth to it. So we've got to talk to town staff about that. Develop and implement mechanisms for public input. This is going to be a challenge with COVID, but that is still where we are nonetheless. We'll probably use the Zoom meeting mechanism until it's safer to have face-to-face meetings. And then lastly, then coordinating with our neighboring communities to connect via bike paths and pedestrian corridors. This is with a special emphasis in South Kingstown on beach access, blue corridors, blue way accesses, as well as other commercial destinations and other natural resource destinations throughout town. Jen, back to you.
Thanks, Kenny. So we'd like to discuss specific recommendations tonight, and these are considered the most important of those as listed in our Bike Pedestrian Improvement Plan, aka the BPIP. The list includes for immediate action, implementation recommendations, planning recommendations, enforcement recommendations, education recommendations, and lastly, infrastructure recommendations. And I'd like to just give a couple examples of each of those. For example, for immediate action, we'd like to ask that we conduct, or the town conducts or updates surveys of the most heavily traveled areas and develop plans to implement complete street improvements for all users. A few specific areas might be Kingstown Road and Old Mountain Field, Wakefield Main Street Business District, as well as Middlebridge Road. That was discussed earlier this evening. So a couple examples of implementation recommendations. We'd like to encourage staff from each town department to champion various sections of the plan and collaboratively with other departments and the BPAC. Also, we'd like to recommend to coordinate that with all town departments prior to developing future statewide transportation improvement plan submissions to RIDOT, aka the STEP, and presentations to the town council. A couple of planning recommendations. We'd like to require developers to require accommodations for bike parking in all commercial developments, as well as require sidewalks to be at least 5 feet wide along most roads and 8 feet wide in commercial areas with a minimum of a 2-foot snow shelf buffer where possible and appropriate. 5 feet wide is our request because typically if it's a very busy and active road, a conduit to destinations, when people walk side by side, or that's the space needed, that's comfortable, 5 feet. Or if somebody is walking, an individual is walking and somebody's walking towards them, 5 feet is that typical width for a sidewalk. A couple enforcement recommendations that we have. To assign a staff member in the Department of Public Safety to coordinate all bike and pedestrian safety, enforcement, and street redesign activities. Also, in coordination with the town engineer, continue tracking and GIS mapping of vehicular, bike, and pedestrian accidents. And then use this data for targeted enforcement efforts in moving forward. And this too, would help with improved street design as well as evaluating progress. Education recommendations. We think it would be great to utilize the local newspapers, online news media, educate the walking and biking public on what the rules of the road are. I think a lot of people question all the time, every summer, so-and-so did this, so-and-so did that, but who truly needs to, who's in the right and wrong, and to try and better the safety throughout town. Also, to develop a bike program housed at the high school. This bike program we called Build a Bike, and it would connect people with bikes, possibly seek out grant funding for helmets and bike lights to give those in our community in need. And lastly, for an education recommendation as an example, would be to develop a wayfinding program with directions and distances between village destinations, as well as signage at key bike path intersections, guiding users to local businesses and destinations. I think that would really help promote a lot of the local businesses throughout town. And lastly, our infrastructure recommendation would be to prioritize projects that build on existing infrastructure, ensuring that new recreation resources are well connected to the existing bike paths, footpaths, parks, open spaces, and other facilities. And lastly, under infrastructure recommendations would be to reduce the width of vehicular lanes to 10 feet where possible and appropriate for traffic calming reasons, and provide somewhat of a road diet by painting edge or shoulder lines and install share the road signs. So some of the next steps, as Kenny had touched on, just to wrap up our presentation this evening, is to provide opportunities for feedback and public engagement within the villages. And we hope to be able to start that relatively soon. In our next BPAC meeting, we'll put a plan together in terms of an action plan for that. Also to continue to promote walking and biking in collaboration with schools, especially during times of COVID, with busing being a challenge. I think that really would be a great opportunity for the schools and parents and kids as best as we can to help promote that. And lastly, draft a green and complete streets ordinance. We had started that for a little while, but we felt we really needed to concentrate on the master plan. And here we are. That's been completed. We'd like to get back to work on that ordinance. So I want to thank you. And if anybody has any questions, we're open to hear what your thoughts are.
Thank you both. Any questions for Kenny or Jen?
Joe Veely, I don't have any questions. It's I wanted to thank you and you know, acknowledge that it's a pretty big undertaking, and you guys have put a lot of work into it, and I know that the town in general appreciates it. And it sounds like you're going down the right road. I almost said path. Sounds like you're going down the right road, and it seems like a big chunk of work has been done to this point. So again, I just wanted to thank you for it and acknowledge your hard work.
Thank you, Joe.
Any other questions? Rob?
Abel, just to let the council know, the town government has sort of shifted its focus with regard to the bike ped advisory committee, in part in response to the master plan that's been produced, in part really to the list that is attached to that, the priority list of projects that is part of this master plan really has focused some attention. It's worth noting that the council approved bond recommendation, the $6.5 million that will be on the ballot in November, on November 3rd, includes $350,000 specifically for bicycle and pedestrian safety improvements. That largely came out of the conversation that the Bike Ped committee, the conversations that they were having about the priorities that would go on there. They've mentioned in their presentation tonight a survey of roads. One of the main things that $350,000 would do is allow the Department of Public Services to go out and do an assessment study, do an inventory of conditions around town, and then begin to develop a priority list for specific improvements, safety improvements that need to be made on roads throughout town. So that is a very clear action that the town is taking in response to the work the committee has done here. I will also note that one of the things that was mentioned tonight is getting the police department's data on accidents put to a GIS. And it just so happens, in fact, that Carol Baker, our GIS guru, and Sergeant Souza, the traffic sergeant in the police department, have met with the SMART committee actually a couple of weeks ago to talk about just that. How can we get those data put to a map so that we understand where accidents are happening and what frequency they're happening with. The Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee has also shifted in terms of the focus of staff from the town. When they started, their principal function was sort of planning. They were going to be putting together this master plan. So they started with staff from the planning department. They moved on to my office as they really focused on drafting the master plan. And now that that plan is done, they will be staffed by the town engineer and Sergeant Souza from the police department, because those are the two departments that are most directly impacted by the work that the committee does. So I have to say, I'm very impressed and delighted with the report that we've gotten from the committee. I think it's a really good work product, and it's got some very actionable items in it. There will be lots of conversation, lots of need for the Department of Public Services to figure out what to do with some of these recommendations, but it's a solid list.
Great. Other questions, comments? All right. Well, thank you for that presentation. I think, when we established the BPAC committee, this is really just sort of what we were envisioning. So thank you for, making that happen. It doesn't happen without great volunteer leadership like yours and the rest of the committee. I look forward to this not being one of those reports that just sits on a shelf and gathers dust. I know that we have a lot of people in town paying attention to these safety issues, and I'm sure some great changes will come about. I look forward to seeing that green and complete streets ordinance and continuing this work. So good luck and thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too.
That brings us back to item 7 on the agenda, communications. 7A are resolutions adopted by the town councils of Barrington, Charlestown, and Warren regarding the distribution of coronavirus relief funds to municipalities. We've received those, placed them on file. What further would we like to do? Do I hear a motion?
It's Deb Kelso. I'll make a motion that we receive the communications and place them on file.
Rory McEntee, I'll second that motion.
Motion by Deb, second by Rory. Any discussion? Is there anyone opposed? That motion carries unanimously. That brings us to 7E, an email dated September 7th, 2020 from Ryan McGuire concerning native land acknowledgements. That has been received, placed on file. With this one, the email link on the agenda was not active, so it might make sense to continue this to the next meeting. I don't know if there's anybody here to speak on this item. Is Ryan here?
Yeah, well, I don't see any Ryans. I'd make a motion to move this item to the next agenda.
Joe Veely, second.
Motion from Bryant, second by Joe. Any discussion? Is there anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously. And that takes us to 7G, an email dated September 15th, 2020 from Bill Huggins requesting that no parking signs be installed along the entrance road to the Chaffee Wildlife Refuge. What would we like to do with this one? Or Rob, perhaps you could just give us a little background on this.
So we can, of course, post no parking signs anywhere that the council determines they belong. It is an ordinance change, so if we were to do this, we'd have to notice that the signs were going up, and we'd have to go through a public hearing to change the parking ordinance. It's very difficult to know what the impact of the changes at the Chafee Reserve are going to mean in terms of traffic to the area. The change in the hunting rules down there will not take effect until next year. So I don't know that we're in a great rush. I don't know that we've got a huge time constraint here. I don't think we've got to beat a lot of folks to the punch and get no parking signs down there. It may make sense for us to monitor it and see what's happening. If parking becomes an issue, no parking signs is a perfectly appropriate response. Right now, it's just hard to know whether that's what's going to happen. It may, and I think that, if it does, we need to be prepared to respond to it.
So Rob, I think I'll make a motion, Abel, to receive it, place it on file, maybe refer it to the manager's office and Public Works.
We'll be working with the police department and public.
Okay, that's my motion.
This is Brian. I'll second that motion.
Motion from Joe, second from Brian. Any discussion? Is there any opposition? All right, that motion carries unanimously. And that brings us to 7H, a letter dated September 17th, 2020 from John R. Bernardo, tendering his resignation from the Zoning Board of Review effective immediately. Would we think a motion to accept that letter is in order?
Deb Kelso, I'll make a motion that we accept that letter and thank Mr. Bernardo for his service.
Brian, I'll second.
Motion from Deb, second from Bryant. Any further discussion? We'll just note for folks watching, we've had a number of resignations from the zoning board lately, so it's one of our very important committees or boards. Please feel free to throw your name in the ring and be considered for a position there. John has served on that board for a very long time and done a great job, so thank you for his service. Is there anyone opposed to this motion? All right, that motion carries unanimously. 7I is an email dated September 22nd, 2020 from John Riondo, tendering his resignation from the planning board, similar to the last item.
This is Brian. I'll make a motion to accept John Riondo's resignation and to send him a letter of thank you.
Joe Veely, second.
We have a motion from Brian, a second from Joe. Is there any discussion? Is there anyone opposed? All right. Thank you, John, for all your service. That motion carries unanimously. 7J is an email dated September 24th, 2020 from Caroline and James Vogel concerning traffic calming measures on Middlebridge Road. I do believe I saw them in the attendees list earlier. Caroline, could we bring her into the panelists? And Caroline, you're currently muted. You can unmute yourself down there in the bottom left-hand corner, and if you'd like to be seen, there you are.
Hi, this is Jim and Caroline. We're both here.
Very good. So tell the public what you wrote to us, and then tell us what you're asking.
So we wrote a note a while back in April suggesting some traffic calming items on Middlebridge. I think, as you noted in the preamble meeting, we had a tragedy this past week with an accident, and there was a pedestrian accident in April too, here on the same road. And we walk our dog and ride our bicycle on the road almost every day, and are witness to a fair amount of the fast cars and speeding, and we noted that in our note. We won't go through those details, but we urge the council to think about some of the measures that Jen mentioned early on in the bicycle pedestrian master plan of ways to calm the traffic. We appreciate the 2 signs coming, and if there by chance are any funds that we could put in 3 or 4, we gave some suggestions of places where they could go. And I think we just need to be diligent about this because it's clear the road just lends itself to people naturally traveling fast, and we need to do something to stop that. There are 32 current signs on the road, including those painted on the road, and it's obvious they're not doing the job. I would love to say they are. In some aspects, maybe there are too many that people are becoming numb. I hope that's not the case, but I think we need to get a little more help from the council to do this.
All right, thank you, Jim and Caroline. I threw out what was kind of a wacky idea, I think, one of the last times we were discussing, traffic problems down there, which is, to me, I just think the physical layout of that road is very hard to stop speeding on it. So unless we somehow change the fact that it is, this sort of throughway into Narragansett, it'll be hard ever to get what we want through traffic calming or signage or what have you. So I was thinking if instead of having Middlebridge just be continuous, you could split it into Middlebridge North, just service the neighborhood sort of to the north of where Torrey Hill Road comes in, and then have Torrey Hill turn into like a Middlebridge South and almost have 2 separate pieces. I think you would get rid of that throughway in the neighborhood, and that would alleviate the problem. But of course it causes other traffic problems, like the people who live north of that intersection would no longer have easy access to the south along Middlebridge. But I think we're going to need to think creatively, and that's obviously just a potential solution, but I think it will require something big.
Understood. I think one of the other people who wrote in suggested maybe labeling it as a no-through street, which I know does help with the online apps and so on. And once they upload that information, that may be another suggestion.
Yes, I've heard both sides of that. Okay. I've heard some say that the wayfinding services online really disregard those designations. But right. It's definitely worth us looking into that and trying to make them listen.
I think the one thing I would urge is to look at the road tables over on Flag Road now. That is something that we suggested, and I do think even with the geography of Middlebridge can lend to slowing people down. I've seen them in Europe. I've seen them in places on narrower roads. They work. I understand there are design changes for what the township has done in the past, but we do have them here in the town now. And I think it'd be a great opportunity for some folks to look at what there are there.
All right. And yeah, I think that the problem there, if I recall in previous discussions, is that the traffic count and flow that we experience on Middlebridge wouldn't allow for tables like that, but I could be wrong, and the DPS can definitely take another look at that. Rob, do you have any
Yeah, I will say that we're meeting with the town engineer either Thursday or Friday, I think. And one of the things that we were going to discuss is whether speed tables are an option. There's a bunch of reasons folks don't like speed tables. It's things like them throwing motorcyclists and bicyclists off if they hit them too hard. Speed tables are gentler than speed bumps. So, that one of the reasons folks have gone to speed tables is because they aren't quite as harsh for snow plows and motorcyclists and bicyclists, but they do still have some problem. The other issue with speed tables is vehicles that are low clearance, the floorboards are close to the road. speed tables are problematic for those vehicles. So you would effectively prevent some folks from driving their vehicles on a road with speed tables. So we need to talk about it. The town engineer is open to all options, all possibilities at this point. If it seems viable, we can certainly pursue it.
So Rob, Joe Veely, so I took a ride up to URI because I learned this week about the speed tables they installed on Flag Road. And they seem to be they're certainly not like a speed bump, but
that's right.
They seem to maybe eliminate some of the problems that you just talked about. They're a pretty gradual climb, and then there's a flattening off, and then a gradual descent. So again, I would trust, Public Works, Public Safety, and the engineer to make the determination. But I think a closer look, and maybe even if they were designed a little bit differently than what's at URI, but I went over, I think there's 5 of them on that road, and I went over each one, and it was nothing like, I live in a neighborhood with speed bumps. I know the difference. I mean, it's a big improvement, I think.
Yeah, they definitely are better. I've been over them in the car, in the truck. I've talked to my son who's been over them on his motorcycle. I've ridden my bicycle over them a few times. They're not a speed bump. They're definitely kinder and gentler. But they're still bumps in the road.
Yeah.
So thank you, Jim and Caroline. I see Karen Humes has her hand raised. I know she has spoken on this issue multiple times before. Let's get her in here. Karen, you are muted currently.
Hi, so obviously my neighbors are on too. We've been trying to connect this week and we really haven't been able to. I've obviously emailed a few times. I've asked the same questions. I think when we talk about the speed tables and we're saying cars can't go down, honestly, that's a lot of the point. I really hope that when we have these conversations with the town engineer, that either, like Jim can be at the meeting, or Tim O'Neill, who's talked in the past, like people that live down here, because we're telling you the speeds down here are awful. And I understand that the police have done, we've done these studies. I don't understand how they're not showing that the speeds are awful. I know Joe said one time that he's going around roads now because stop signs were implemented. People come down this road to avoid the traffic lights on Route 1. That's why they're coming this way. So if we made it inconvenient for them, then it would be the same thing. My husband works for the town and he literally almost got hit and was in the bushes on the curve right after, like this summer. I emailed you guys. He was in the bushes, jumping out of the road. It happens every day, but nobody wants to listen to the residents that live with it every day. Like it's really bad. And when I spoke after the first person was killed who lives here, I said another one was going to happen. 6 months later, here we are again. And I understand it was a speeding accident, but that's the speeds people go down all the time down this road, but nobody wants to listen. And it's hard and it's frustrating.
So, Mr. President, I would say we are listening. We're trying to find solutions. The pedestrian accident that happened in April was not a speed incident. It was a 30-mile-an-hour drunk driver. It was not a speeding case in that example. We've got this problem in a lot of places around town, and the solutions that we propose have got to be scalable and applicable or modifiable. They have to be appropriate to the local conditions on the road, but they have to also be something that we are prepared to deploy elsewhere. We were talking about Flag Road and the speed tables on Flag Road. That's a URI installation, not a town installation. And riding my bicycle to try riding a bicycle over those speed tables, I had to ride down Old North Road and was forced off the pavement twice riding down Old North Road, because we have people who take that very long straight road and get up to as much speed as they can. Getting beyond Old North Road to Stony Fort, again, forced off the pavement a number of times over the last 6 months. We have speeding problems in South Kingstown, and we need to find solutions that are appropriate to the conditions on local roads and are also scalable and applicable or modifiable to meet conditions across the road network in South Kingstown. We're not at all callous to the danger that our neighbors face. We all face these problems. Middlebridge has a unique geometry, topography. It is a narrow and difficult road, but we have narrow and difficult roads across town. And this is one of the reasons why the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee's recommendation to do a survey and to get an inventory and to get a study of the conditions across the whole network is so important. We need to have that, as Jen was talking about, that GIS map that shows where the accidents are and what the characteristics of those accidents were. Just to use the 2 incidents this year on Middlebridge, we don't have a speed trend based on those 2 incidents, at least in terms of those accidents. We have one low speed, 30 mile an hour, and one very high speed accident on Middlebridge. We need to get a handle on what's causing accidents throughout South Kingstown, and then we need to have smart solutions. Jim points out tonight that there's already a large number, 30 some odd signs on Middlebridge Road. Signs probably aren't the solution. More stop signs, more speed feedback signs really probably aren't the solution to Middlebridge. They may be very effective on Jerry Brown Farm Road, feedback signs maybe, but we've got to get the data to understand what's going on in each of those places. And
so is the data, excuse me, is the data going to be another child dying or myself dying on Middlebridge Road before you'll do something? Because to be quite honest with you, not only do they pass you speeding, but they've passed me through the double yellow line as I'm driving. So I get it. There's a ton of problems in South Kingstown. But you know what? I see little children riding their bikes on that road. Rob, come walk with me. You pick the time. You let me know how fast people are speeding. Buy me in a car. Honestly, there are many times I've thrown water bottles at cars. So what's going to happen there? I just think that really come up with something because someone else is going to get killed pretty fast.
So again, we're looking for a solution, and you have made the recommendation that we look at speed tables. We will look at speed tables. If it's viable, they can be deployed. If it doesn't work for any reason, we may not be able to do that. If you have other suggestions, we're open to them. The recommendation was made in April that we put stop signs up. We have done that. The recommendation was made that we narrow the road by painting lines on the side of the road. We've done that. The recommendation was made to reduce the width of the road visually by putting stanchions up. That's been done. We made the recommendation was made by the state of Rhode Island's Department of Transportation a number of years ago that we paint the speed limit in the road, in the travel lanes. That's been done. We've made many efforts to improve conditions on Middlebridge Road, and we have not yet gotten to the point where it's good enough. I get that. What the answer is, I don't get. I don't know what the answer is.
Rob, just a question on the white lines, and I'm not trying to be sarcastic to you. They stop, like, honestly, right before where the accident was the other day. Do you know why? Like, it goes all the way to Narragansett when you leave Torrey, and coming back towards Bridgetown, it stops right past Radial.
I don't know. What I can tell you is I've driven down and I've walked down parts of Middlebridge recently, and what I have noticed is that the road isn't wide enough. The lanes aren't wide enough to allow the white lines to be painted everywhere along the road. So I don't know if that's the condition.
It might be
in that case.
Okay, yeah, because right where the accident was the other day, all the way to Bridgetown, there isn't, and I assume because it is super narrow in there. But I mean, to Caroline's point, Friday night with my son, I was passed on the lines right by the boat launch, and the lady happened to be outside screaming at them. I mean, they pass us all the time. And the worst area is from Torrey to where the accident was. Like the speeds that go through there are insane. And that's why we were asking for like the tables by the park, even down by Riverside. It's that area hasn't been really dealt with because, I mean, there's not much you can do besides the humps there.
It's straight and it's the most densely populated other than the curve. The curve is the same density of houses, but it's pretty much, you know, very dense from that area that Karen described.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We will look at speed tables. And to answer the question, you know, will members of the community be able to be part of the conversation? Yes. I anticipate that the staff meeting on Thursday will come up. We will come out of Thursday or Friday, and it's this week. We will have some, you know, better understanding of what might be possible, and we will engage the community in a conversation about it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, Caroline, and Karen. Do I hear a motion on 7J?
Joe Veely, I'll make a motion to receive the communication, place it on file, and again, refer it to the manager's office to consider, I think, with public safety and public works and the engineering.
Deb Kelso, I'll second that.
Motion from Joe, second from Deb. Any further discussion? Is there anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously. I look forward to hearing the outcome of that discussion of speed tables. That brings us to item 8 on the agenda, which is comments from interested citizens. This is anybody's opportunity to raise their hand, make comments. If you're on your phone, you just have to hit *9 to raise your hand, and then *6 to unmute yourself. Is there anyone who would like to speak tonight? Everybody wants to go and see that debate that's coming up. All right, are there any comments from council members? Everybody wants to go and see that debate tonight. All right, that brings us to item 9, the town manager's report.
I will keep this very brief. I did mention earlier the $6.5 million bond referendum that will be on the ballot on November 3rd. We're in the process of finalizing the public brochure information packet on that. But just to remind the council and the public who may be listening, the $6.5 million bond question that will be on the ballot on November 3rd would pay for road improvements, a new seawall or the continuation of the seawall at Matunic Beach Road, bicycle and pedestrian safety improvements, primarily the study and inventory of dangerous spots around town, and then some equipment we anticipate. It would pay for all or a portion of, we will be looking for some of the capital monies to come from existing capital funds, but some or all of the new communications network for police, fire, EMS, and the Department of Public Services, as well as improvements to the Old Mountain Field concession, restroom, the boat launch at Marina Park, and improvements to town beach facilities. That is the item that will be on the agenda, on the ballot in November. And again, the information, public information, is being finalized this week. And the only other thing I will report out is a brief COVID update. We are seeing a significant increase in COVID cases in the European Union, which gives us pause because the last time we saw an increase in Europe, it was just weeks ahead of our outbreak on the East Coast. The cases in Europe right now are actually higher than at any other point in the entire pandemic history. So it is a real significant event. in the United States, COVID cases are up. In Rhode Island, they're up slightly. In South Kingstown, we've had 6 additional cases since our last meeting, bringing us close to about 140 cases through the duration of the pandemic since March. Not too bad. URI has actually been a fairly bright spot. We have not seen too many cases. There are a number of positive cases at URI, but they're not huge. URI actually maintains a dashboard that folks can go to if you want to see the URI cases. We have had our first case of a positive among town employees, positive test. We've taken all of the precautions necessary to make sure that everyone else in the workforce is not exposed. And we are beginning next week going to move to a pod rotation. We're going to be essentially following an A, B, C pod rotation for town employees. Our A pod will be in the building all of the time using precautions like hand washing and masks. Our B pod will be rotating in for 2 weeks in the office and then 2 weeks remote. And when they rotate out, the C pod will be rotating in for 2 weeks and then rotating out to be remote for 2 weeks. Trying to keep as much distance among our employees as possible, but also trying to make sure that the offices are manned, staffed. The doors to Town Hall, if all goes well, and we have the staffing strategy worked out, will be unlocked and services will be available with a concierge at the front door to help folks find their way through the building to make sure that we don't have stacking or queuing at any of the service desks starting on Monday the 5th. That's my report.
Thank you, Rob. Abel, I have a question. There's been a constituent that's been trying to access the meeting. I helped her as much as I can. I think she's the phone number on the call-in.
The 401 ends in 215.
Yeah, I'm looking at the number on my phone. It's the same number, ends in
Okay.
215.
So if you can hear me out there on the telephone and you would like to speak, you can hit *9 on your phone. Do they need to hit *9 to be brought into the meeting, or can
Well,
we?
I think you can bring them in without it. There we go. So,
Yeah. And so now, if you can hear me, you can hit *6 to unmute yourself. Or I don't know if you can communicate that to them.
I'll try. So it was *6.
*6.
So their hand is, she figured out, oh, there you go. Got it.
Good.
Yep, she's in the meeting. We can hear you. I believe.
Yeah, maybe they cannot hear us. You are.
Can you hear me?
Yes. And please state your name for the record. Maybe, can you tell her that we can hear her? She went and muted herself again.
So star, let me think. *6 is to mute and unmute. So we can't unmute her on our end, right?
Susan, do we have the ability to unmute from our end?
No, we can ask to unmute, which
yeah,
I've done.
I just asked her to unmute, but she's still muted.
Oh, she's
Nope,
unmuted
she
now.
is.
All right. You are on and you can speak now. Please just state your name for the record. Are you getting any communications?
No response on my end. I could try calling the number, but I'm assuming that would switch her over if she answered on my end. All I can recall is her first name is Susan, I believe. I guess we can move forward if we can't communicate.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe try and advise her to see if she can find a way online. I don't know if that would be easier to manage technically. But and then advise her to raise her hand when she's ready.
Hello?
Here we go.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes. But you got to turn off your, you might have the, do you have it live?
I have my phone and my computer.
Right, you need to turn the volume down on your computer.
Okay.
Technically.
Okay, so you can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, I've done Zoom plenty of times under different circumstances, but somehow this is all different. Okay, I'm Susan Hines, and I live about 1,500 feet from Lavender Farm as the crow flies. I was not aware of their existence until I read it in the newspaper, and I still didn't know exactly where they were. There are several abutters to the farm, and until July, they were unaware of the special events that were being planned. Indeed, one abutting neighbor worked for Dr. Cabrera, helping plant the lavender. They were unaware that the design of the lavender, radiating from a large white gazebo, was described by his promoter in a video on his Facebook page as a perfect wedding venue. There are several abutters to the farm, and until July, they were aware of the special event. Now, the neighbors got together, and which is kind of difficult because we actually are pretty far apart with one another and don't often see each other. Dr. Cabrera has a 13-acre piece of land, which pretty much is an island, as far as I can determine. It's been farmland for a period of time. It has been through the Carpenter farm, and but everyone else around him has a house with either an acre or more, or in our case, in Land and Sea, it's a residential compound, which means it's an R200 zoning. Now, Dr. Cabrera has no direct access to a public road. So this little farm is an island. He only has a right of way, which is not wide enough to let vehicles go through in a two-way fashion, which obviously makes a wedding event very dangerous because there's no emergency vehicles could go in. He currently has a planner working on this issue, and he's come up with a couple of different plans. And right now he's proposing a curb cut, which means he has to eventually go to the Rhode Island Department of Transportation, as I understand it. Now, the reason I'm requesting the moratorium is that there is some likelihood that he won't get this done on this permit request. He could be denied, which would trigger him to come up with still a different plan, and then have that have to request a new permit. Now, not only that, but There are other pieces of land which could go to a similar situation. Just down the road from me on Mattoonit Schoolhouse Road, I noticed that a farm whose owner had died was sold. And I guess they're leaving one house and they're going to be building another. But who knows whether they'll build a farm or not. So this is not only an issue for us, and I want you to understand, and I'm sorry, I'm getting the feedback from what I said 2 minutes ago, so it's a little bit disturbing. But anyway, yeah, I want you to realize that I know that this moratorium, if it were to be passed, would not affect the current permit. What it would affect is if he has to file a new permit based on all the hoops he has to jump through to get this access to Commodore Perry Highway. In the meantime, we're also helping to ensure that other small pieces of land are not turned into wedding venues.
All right. Thank you, Susan. I know that the audio is a bit delayed.
Okay, so I would appreciate, I understand it has to go to the planning board now, but I'd really like it to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mike, members of the council have received a memo from the solicitor's office regarding the potential for establishing a moratorium for these farm events. Could you just recap that?
Sure. A moratorium on farm events is really not likely because under state law, the only reason a town council can adopt a moratorium is under dire circumstances in connection with an emergency, which was not something that can be reasonably foreseeable in the comprehensive plan process. So the standard for adopting a moratorium on any issue is quite high. Now, having said that, certainly the planning department, the planning board can look at the ordinance and make recommendations to the council about changes for the future. That, in my opinion, would be the best legal approach because I just don't believe a moratorium would stand up. And by the way, it would affect everyone in town, not just the Lavender Wave Farm. So I know there will obviously be pushback from a lot of different individuals who would be affected by it. And as I state in my memo to you, and I know it just came today, so you may not have had the opportunity to review it, but it really isn't the right way to go. There is going to be, as the caller stated, there is going to be a meeting that they will be able to attend at the planning board with regard to this application. There are many, many issues with this application that have to be addressed, and members of the public will all have the opportunity to raise their concerns at that meeting. But yeah, so in the meantime, we can certainly look at the ordinance in general. There's a state law that was adopted back a while ago. The stated intention was to preserve farms here in Rhode Island, and they're not able to be economically viable by raising crops. And that was the impetus behind the state law, which involved the addition of quote unquote farm events, whether they be hay rides or Halloween type events, going through corn mazes, all those types of things. The weddings are absolutely subject to planning board review. They are not automatic. So they're looked at on a case-by-case basis. Some areas they work out, other areas maybe not so. But my advice at this point would be that the council really should not pursue the moratorium process.
Thank you, Mike. And at the last meeting, we did sort of forward this issue back to the planning board for recommendations for amendments to that ordinance.
Yes.
So we'll look forward to that conversation and, seeing where this particular application goes. So thank you, Mike, and thank you, Susan. Rob, we did just interrupt the town manager's report. I think you had wrapped up. One question I did have was about another communication we got at the last meeting about Green Hill Beach access. There were a couple parking spots potentially that could be opened up by moving a.
Yeah, so there's actually a couple of different things that we've received in terms of correspondence on Green Hill beach access. The one is simply increased parking. And I understand that this was an issue that was addressed a number of years ago when Chief Vespia was still the police chief. And the neighbors in the vicinity of that right-of-way were very concerned about the impact of increased traffic and parking in the neighborhood. So it's an issue that we're very cautious about pursuing. The DPS folks can, of course, expand parking down there. It's possible, but it's not clear that that will make for a better situation. It may make for more folks who can park there, but it's a very narrow right of way, and that gets to the second issue, which is an issue that's been raised about what the town can do with possible delineation or demarcation of where the right-of-way is. Our right-of-way in that vicinity is essentially straight out from the road. And folks have had the experience of going out our right-of-way perpendicular with the road straight out toward the ocean, and then turning left or right below the mean high water mark and having challenges about whether or not they were in fact in the public area in that part of the seashore where they could be. We had this issue over at the Charlestown Beach area last summer. The same issue persists wherever the mean high water mark and the demarcation for shore access exists in South Kingstown and throughout Rhode Island. So it's a narrow spit of sand that then opens up to whatever that below the mean high water mark area is. It's virtually impossible for the town to police that piece of it. And there is some concern that if we facilitate parking, we will also fuel conflicts, because private property owners have the right to exclude the public from their private property, which is above the mean high water mark in that area. And folks, because the spit of sand that continues out beyond the road is narrow, there's not a lot of room for beachgoers or sunbathers or anything like that. So it's not a simple let's just put up, allow more parking and we're gonna increase public access to the area. It would be a place where the public could gain access to the shore below the mean high water mark. But as we've discussed previously in council meetings, what that line is, where that demarcation is not at all clear, because below the mean high water mark is not the average as it appears based on where the seaweed lies. It's an 18-year average that you have to keep track of. And private property owners may have done surveys, but the town certainly does not do surveys, and we cannot in any given conflict tell where that line is. It's a very difficult problem here. So we're happy. I'd like to, I guess the upshot of all that is I'd like to hear from folks about what they'd like us to do. Please, call my office. Let's talk to DPS about what can be done. But it's not as easy as just, making more parking available. We need to figure out a number of interlinked issues, I think.
Yeah, it sounds, I think it is a complex issue, but it's also only, I think, 2 parking spots that would be talked about. So probably not enough to cause a huge aggravation. But I do see Nate has his hand raised on this issue. Imagine that's Nate Merrill. I'll bring a comment, Nate.
Excuse me, Abel, this is Mike. Can we just add this matter to the agenda if we're going to open it up for discussion beyond the manager?
Do I hear such a motion?
Yeah, Joe Veely, I'll make that motion.
I will second.
If I may, it's already addressed under communication item F on the agenda. It was just a consent agenda item.
Then the motion would be to take it off the consent agenda.
Joe Veely, I'll amend that motion.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Joe, second by Deb. Is there any discussion? Anyone opposed? All right, very good. Nate.
Hey, good evening. Thank you guys for looking into it. I didn't know it was going to be talked about tonight, but luckily I was listening in. I did see that Green Hill item on there. So I would suggest that just because there is conflict down there between private property owners and public use of the beach, that we don't be scared away from improving public access to the area. This is sort of how it goes, and how the public loses access is to back away when, for instance, a town manager just deciding that, it's not a big enough space for more people. There's a lot of stuff that people want to do below the mean high tide line and along the shore, however that's defined in the future, where parking helps. So I would suggest and hope that instead of scaring away from improving public access, that we take the opportunity to add 2 more spots. It's just 2 more spots. And the use of the shore is going to be contested for a long time. And so that mean high water line could change in the interpretation of that. So I just hope that we can be a counterforce to this kind of privatize the coast idea that's happening, with people adding signs, harassing beachgoers, and restricting parking. So if we can push back the other way, there's a lot of people that would appreciate it. And I know you guys have been hearing from us. So we hope that you look across all these points of access to the coastline and look for more parking, because we're going to keep pushing it as much as we can.
All right. Thank you, Nate. So we just took that item off the consent agenda. So I guess now we need a motion to do something with it.
Joe Veely, I'll make a motion to place it on file and refer it to the manager's office to study.
This is Bryant, I'll second.
Motion from Joe, second from Bryant. Is there any further discussion? Is there anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously. And were there any other questions for the town manager regarding the town manager's report? Or? All right, that brings us to appointments.
Joe Veely, I'd like to make an appointment to resolution to appoint Harold Thomas, Rufus H. Thomas Jr. to the vacancy on the planning board.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second for Rufus Thomas to the planning board. We did just have an opening come up on this. I don't know if it would be the will of the council to re-interview people that we already have who have applied and seek
So,
new applicants.
So we do have 3 people that we did interview at the end of June that are still in the queue.
I have a quick question though. Did we re-advertise this opening?
We just received John Rendo's resignation tonight, so no, we have not advertised that again.
Okay. So maybe I'm getting confused with the zoning board then.
Yeah, zoning now, there's 2 vacancies, but
And we did re-advertise the zoning vacancies.
There is a candidate we have not interviewed, however, for the planning board, right? That applied June 29th, Michael Jeremia.
Yeah.
We have not interviewed.
You know why we didn't interview him? Was it just?
I have no idea.
There was no vacancy to interview him for. You made an appointment when you interviewed the other 3. There were actually 4 that had been interviewed, and you made an appointment. And this is a brand new vacancy.
so I was fairly impressed with all 3 of the ones that we did interview on the 22nd of June. And I think based on the interviews, I think Harold would be a good fit. Those are my comments.
Right.
I think Rory, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, I'll just, I do like Hal Thomas. I think he is a local businessman. I think it's good to have some balance on the planning board. But if the rest of the council is not comfortable moving forward and want to wait and interview that last candidate, I'm comfortable with that. I want to make sure we give, all people the proper consideration as it comes to this open position. This is one of the bigger boards that is under the council. So definitely we should, weigh all options possible here. But I'm comfortable with Hal to keep that balance on the planning board. But if the rest of the council is not, then I'm not as well.
I think I'd at least like to interview the Michael Jeremiah, who has his application in, and have an opportunity for, to advertise the position. But
I agree with that, Abel. I think we owe it to the applicants we already have to interview them and give everybody a fair shot.
I agree with what Rory said as well. So I would be okay with at least interviewing the person that's already applied and then making a decision at the next meeting.
all right. So, Joe, do you want to withdraw the motion? Do you want to vote on it?
Well, I mean, I see where the vote's going, but I don't see a reason to withdraw it. Let's vote what we feel, I guess. I mean, I'm comfortable with this candidate. There are 3 other interviews that we did. And I repeat that they all did well. And I think, as Rory mentioned, balance is important on the planning board, and having a business person on the planning board, I think would bring that balance. So I'm comfortable with the vote. I think he's a strong candidate, and the planning board has a lot of stuff on their plate. They have a lot going on. So I would say call the vote and see what happens.
All right. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Council President Collins,
No.
Council Vice President DeCruz,
No.
Councilman McEntee,
No.
Councilwoman Kelso,
No.
Councilman Veely.
Aye.
The motion fails 4-1.
All right. And Susan, if you could try and get Mr. Jeremiah to that interview at the next meeting, that would be great.
I will do that.
Any other resolutions for appointments tonight?
Joe Veely, I'll make a resolution to appoint Michael Henry to the Library Board of Trustees.
This is Brian. I'll second that motion.
Motion from Joe, second from Brian. Discussion?
I think we had a lot of good candidates apply. And that's, it's a tough decision. And I hope whoever doesn't get on a board considers other boards as well.
I will add that I think in my 6 years in the council, everybody who interviews for the Library Board of Trustees is very passionate. So it's always a hard choice.
Agreed. All right. Any further discussion? Take the roll on this one as well.
Council President Collins,
Aye.
Council Vice President DeCruz,
Aye.
Councilwoman Kelso,
Aye.
Councilman McEntee,
Aye.
Councilman Veely.
Aye.
Mike Henry is appointed.
Good. And then I know that there are some other reappointments for positions that people want to be continued on. Do we want to have them all come in for interviews as well? Okay. At folks' convenience, Susan, if you could have those people schedule interviews.
So Abel, I have a question for the council actually about, we now have 2 vacancies on the zoning board. We did have an interview. I know that we have re-interviewed. Is it the feeling of the council that we should wait to appoint till we've done all the interviews? Looking for some general feedback.
I would wait, in my opinion. I mean, not that we want those vacancies to be there for too long, but if we could just allow everyone that's put their hat in the ring to get an interview, I think that's probably more of the will of the people.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And then there's 11B. We discussed this a little bit in the workshop or work session. We are potentially looking for members of the public to serve on the school building committee to free up some of town staff to attend to their regular duties and budgeting in particular. So if you are out there listening and you have some expertise to lend to that committee, please throw your hat in the ring. That brings us to item 12, new business, 12C.
Deb has her hand raised regarding that, I think.
Oh, sorry, I was on the attendees there. Deb.
Yeah, so I would like to just suggest that before we start accepting applications for the school building committee, we should set some guidance about what we're looking for. I think moving into the final phases of stage 2 and then into stage 3, we need expertise that's lacking on the board, construction, people that are involved in the trades, that sort of thing needs to be addressed. We don't have that from the public on the board. We do have she's a commercial interior designer and she brings a good skill set to us, but we need to expand on that. I'd also like to see the council look at our 7 appointments and decide how many town staff we want there, how many council people we want there going forward. It's a different skill going into stage 3 than it was in stage 1 and stage 2. And I think it's important that we really examine the committee going forward. So that's what I'd like to see. We will have 7 people to appoint or reappoint. The school committee has 6 that they seem to be very solid on. And no movement on their 6 appointments. So we'll have 7 to fill to get us to keep us at the 13 in the council majority. But I'd like to see us examine that at a later session.
Okay, so Deb, are you saying that we should, I mean, potentially just a wholesale change of the 7 on the town side? Like,
I do. You know, I'm a firm believer in the council majority because that's part of the charter, right? But the 7 that are sitting there now, and I'm one of them, I think that needs to be examined. Why the 7 are chosen, how we're going to choose the 7. I think we need to look at it. I think it's time.
I don't think, Deb, you're saying that we need a complete change. I think we just need to analyze and look at what positions are currently on there, who's on there, what expertise they bring.
We may decide as a council that the 7 need to stay. I just think we need to look at it.
Right.
I think it's important that we re-examine this. It's been a couple of years, you know, 2.5 years since the committee was appointed. And I think it's important that we as the council look at those appointments and make sure that we have, you know, 2 or 3 members of the public most definitely included in this committee.
so yeah, so similar to, you know, what we do with all these boards and commissions, we could ask for everybody who wants to continue to, you know, reapply. So go through that whole process of.
Yeah, but I also think, Abel, we should look at what we expect from the appointees, right? What are you bringing to the committee that's needed in the committee, you know? So I agree with Rob. We don't need all the finance people there. When we need their expertise, we can call on them for the answers. The same with the building officials. When we need their expertise, it's not like their knowledge has gone because they're not voting members of the community. And I think opening up the committee to more knowledge is a good thing, and more members of the public is really what I think is would be wise of us to pursue.
Now, so I presume that you know, Susan's going to be advertising for this open position. Can we come up with a list right now of specific expertise that we're looking for?
There really isn't an open position right now, right? So right now we filled those positions with staff, with directors, with directors from the staff, right? So the building official is there, the finance chair is there, so there isn't an opening.
Okay.
Wayne Pimentel is gone. We have not reappointed the interim building official. We could do that, but is that wise, I think, is my question to all of us. Let's look at what the committee is made up of and why am I there? You know, why is Rob there? All of those things. What do we bring to the table? So I think this is a bigger discussion for the council than appoint the interim building official, you know, or leave that for the public, that position for the public. I think it's a bigger policy discussion that we need to have in the next, you know, month.
I certainly, I think it is a big discussion. You know, my concern, of course, is that we are short on time in this whole process.
But we're not able. The stage 2 application is ready to be sent, if that's the consensus, right? That the stage 2 application was so near completion a month ago that we, you know, maybe we could have sent it. I was not comfortable doing that. None of us were. So it's not forming the stage 2 application now. I'm looking for when the stage 2 goes in February, that stage 3, when it comes back from RIDE and we start looking at stage 3, I think that's what we should be planning for. Not for next month, but for March and April and moving forward from there.
Okay.
I agree with Deb's comments.
All right, very good. In that case, let us proceed to new business. 12C is a resolution authorizing an award of bid to Tower Construction Corp. of Cranston, Rhode Island for EMS South Station bunk room renovations, including labor, supplies, and all appurtenances in an amount not to exceed $83,370, including a contingency, further detailed in a memo from the facilities superintendent to the town manager dated September 17th.
Joe Veely, motion to approve 12C.
Bryant, I'll second.
Motion from Joe, second from Brian. Any discussion? Is there anyone opposed to this motion? All right, that motion carries unanimously. 12E is a resolution authorizing the town manager to execute a grant agreement with the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management for wastewater treatment facility resilience funds to be used for resiliency improvements to the Middlebridge wastewater pumping station, further described in a memo from the Public Services Director to the town manager dated September 21st.
Joe Veely, motion to approve 12E.
Deb Kelso, I'll second that.
Motion by Joe, second from Deb. Any discussion? Is there anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously as well. 12F is a resolution authorizing an award of bid to Allied Painting of Cherry Hill, New Jersey for exterior power washing, spot paint, and miscellaneous repairs to the Victoria Lane and Mautucket Road water tanks in an amount not to exceed $143,000, including a $20,000 contingency, with authorization that any funds expended in excess of $88,000 be appropriated from the water fund's unrestricted net assets, further described in a memo from the Public Services Director to the town manager dated September 21st.
This is Bryant. I'll make a motion to approve item 12F.
Joe Veely, second.
Motion from Bryant, second from Joe. Any discussion? No. Is there anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously. 12G is a resolution authorizing an extension to an award of bid originally granted June 12th, 2017 to Atlantic Control Systems, Exeter, Rhode Island, for municipal subcontractor excavating services at the unit prices bid for a 1-year period from July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, further detailed in a memo from the Public Services Director to the town manager dated September 22nd.
It's Deb Kelso. I'll make a motion to approve item 12G.
This is Bryant. I'll second that motion.
Motion from Deb, second from Bryant. Any discussion? Is there anyone opposed? That motion carries unanimously. 12H is a resolution authorizing an amendment to an award of bid originally granted on June 12th, 2017 to UniFirst Corporation of Warwick, Rhode Island for uniform leasing services at the unit prices bid for the period July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021, further described in a memo from the Public Services Director to the town manager dated September 23rd.
This is Bryant. I'll make a motion to approve item 12H.
Deb Kelso, I'll second that.
Motion from Bryant, second from Deb. Is there any discussion? Is there anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously as well, and that brings us to the end of tonight's agenda. Do I hear a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Bryant, second by Deb. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? That motion carries, and this meeting is ended. It's 9:15 p.m. Enjoy your evenings, everyone. Thank you for attending.
Good night.
Good night, all.